Hi, Matt with etrailer. If you have a 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander and you just need a little bit more traction for those snowy days, or you live in a state that requires you to have chains, then the Titan Chain tire chains are going to be a great option for you. So let's check them out. Now, something I want to say right off the bat is that the owner's manual doesn't suggest using tire chains for this, and that's going to be because of the clearance we have. Now, if you live in a state that requires you to have chains, then these are probably going to be one of the best bets for you. Now, we're also going to have this on tire size 255 45 R20, and we're going to have this on the front axle. These are going to be made out of a low carbon steel, so they're going to be more of a softer metal. So what that's going to do for you is they're going to be a little bit more of a comfortable drive overall. And something else that's going to lend to that too is going to be the links themselves. While they might not give you a whole lot of traction as compared to something like a square link, with it being a roller style, it is going to give you more of a smooth ride. Now we are going to have a ladder style pattern. With that ladder style pattern, it's just going to give you more traction when you're starting and stopping. Now if we actually look at that clearance underneath our suspension, we don't have a lot of space back here. And that's actually one of the reasons why I recommend using these chains, is because these are going to be Class S chains, and we still have plenty of space to sit underneath there. And for that reason, I do recommend using a rubber tensioner because we don't have a whole lot of space there. Because what can happen is when you're driving down the road, and if you're not paying enough attention to your tire chains, they could shift, and once they shift, they usually loosen up some. And if they loosen up a little bit too much, they can make contact with your suspension. That's why a rubber tensioner is great, because it's going to apply constant tension to your chains so that doesn't happen. If you don't have a set, you can find a set on our website. Now, this set of chains is going to come in a set of 2, and they're going to come in this pretty light duty bag. And that's pretty alright, because with these being more light duty chains, they really shouldn't tear this up too much. Now, something to think about is when you're trying to put your chains back in here. Because with the nature of roller style chains is they're kind of springy, so when you roll them up, it's going to be kind of difficult to put them back in here. Now, compared to other bags I've seen, this is a larger one, so it won't be as difficult. But I still suggest investing in like a small tote just to make this process a bit easier. In my opinion, I think this is a great choice. If you're just looking for something to stay legal in your state, maybe you're not finding yourself using them a whole lot, you just need them to be in your car, they're great for that. Now, if you do find yourself facing a little bit deeper snow or a little bit more ice, then I'd recommend a different set of chains. I'd recommend the Koenig self-tensioning tire chains. They are going to be a lot more premium, but they're going to offer you a lot too. So the benefits of that, they're going to have square link chains. They'll get you through those heavier snow and ice conditions, and they're going to be a lot easier to put on, because with this, you actually have to get underneath your vehicle, and that could be a real pain, especially on those snowy days. But if you don't mind that, especially if you're just looking for something just to have on hand, this is going to be one of your best bets. Now, if you are curious to see that installation, just stay tuned and we'll walk you through it. To begin the installation, I'm going to grab some gloves just to make this a bit easier and lay out my chains. Now, if this is your first time trying this out, I recommend trying this out at home so you don't have to try to figure this out on the side of the road in the middle of a blizzard. But what we're looking for is to make sure we don't have any damages to our links. Make sure everything's looking pretty good. And we also want to make sure everything's in the right orientation. So right off the bat, we're going to check these hooks. We want to make sure those are facing forward so they're not rubbing against our tire. And we also want to check the placement of this lever. So right now, this is in a spot that I don't want it to be in because it's on the inside. So all I'm going to do is just flip this around so this fits on the outside of our chain. I want to flip it around like this so I keep my hooks facing up. Once I've done that, I can just lift up and drape them over our tire. Squeeze it in here because it is going to be a little bit of a tight fit here. And I'm just trying to make sure everything is pretty even. You don't want anything hanging down too low. Once I've adjusted that, I'm just going to take these chains and kind of feed them over to the side so they're going to be a little bit easier when we make our connections. And speaking of those connections, we're going to start on the back side because that's going to be the more difficult side. So we're just going to grab these sides and push those metal blocks through that channel. Now if you do have two hands, I recommend using both. If you can get them both to fit under here. But you can definitely still do this with one hand. It's just going to be a little bit more tricky. Now when you do this, you want to make sure you don't tighten it down too much, because that's not going to give you an even fit for this chain. And so it might require you to do this a few more times just to get that right fit. And the front side is going to be a very similar process, pushing these blocks through that channel. We'll try to get this on pretty tight. Get that last one. Then you're going to get to this point, and the only difference between the front and back is we're going to have this lever now. I want to pull on that lever and make sure this gets pretty tight until we can wrap it around the other side of that cable. Now if you do have a lot of excess, we do have this little tab here. That's just to make sure it grabs on here, but we don't have too much, so it should be fine in that respect. The chain's looking pretty good, but I still want to use one of our rubber tensioners. This is just going to help pull out a lot of that slack we can get while we drive at times. When you do this, I recommend put them on in a star pattern, just so this kind of distributes that tension throughout evenly. And we also want to make sure that our hooks are facing away from our tire. And that's just so they don't puncture anything. With that on all the way, kind of test it again. You like the way that fits? Then you can repeat this entire process on the other side. After which I recommend either pulling forward or back some, just to make sure everything's working pretty well. And if it is, you can take it out for a ride. Well, that's just a look at the Titan Chain tire chains on our 2024 Mitsubishi Outlander. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.